Hi, everyone. So, thank you so much for joining us again for another weekly Nano Chat. And my name is Fanyam Wendy, and I'm the co founder of the STEM Advocacy Institute. During the week, every week, mostly, we have these Nano Chats where we chat with founders and directors of initiatives around science around the world. And so, we've been traveling the world. We've been to Ghana. We've been to the west coast of the U.S., and now we're going to be in Nigeria. And really excited to chat with Abdullahi Tsanni, who is the one of the biologists and a freelance science journalist at Science Communication Hub in Nigeria. And I was very excited to get them to come and talk with us about what they're working on. Because I think we need voices. We have many people that are working on these projects around the world, and we need their voices to be heard. And so I'm really excited to learn more about the organization, what they do, what they don't do, and some of the things that they're working on now. And so with that, I will pass it on to Abdullahi. And again, welcome.
Thank you, Manuel. My name is Abdullahi Tsanni, and I'm a freelance and journalist, and I am also a volunteer with the Science Communication Hub Nigeria. And currently, I am the communication team lead at Science Communication Hub here in Nigeria. So, so to start with, Science Communication Hub Nigeria was founded by Mahmoud Bukarmena. Mahmoud is currently a postdoctoral research fellow at Sapel Laboratory in the University of Sussex in Brighton, United Kingdom. Mahmoud has been passionate about science right from childhood, and he wanted to become a medical doctor. Unfortunately, he was admitted to study anatomy in the University of Maiduguri in Nigeria. And after his undergraduate studies, he was able to secure a scholarship at the University of Sussex to further his studies, where he was basically studying Alzheimer's disease, trying to study some proteins in order to understand the disease. So he's a neuroscientist, and in the process, Mahmoud was able to, because of his passion, as a result of his passion for science, he joined the Trend Outreach in the UK. That is the Trend is teaching and research in natural sciences for development in Africa. It is actually a non-profit that is dedicated um, to improving science education and research in Africa. So just to give you a background of why we came up with the idea of Science Communication Hub in Nigeria. Generally, in Nigeria, there's a poor teaching of science. Generally, when we talk about science, technology, engineering, and math subjects, there's a poor teaching of these subjects in Nigeria. And some of the factors that have been identified include outdated teaching methods, as well as inadequate teaching facilities to teach science subjects. Now, this actually has a lot of effect on students that want to study science in Nigeria. As a result of the fact that there are no enough, due to inadequate sufficient facilities in order to teach science subjects like physics, chemistry, biology in Nigeria, um, a lot of students, secondary school students, tend to, when they are making their choices, when they are going to senior secondary school, usually in Nigeria, they go into the arts and commercial science. So, and also there's another key problem is the fact that there is lack of science mentors. There are no visible science role models. So the result is that we end up producing scientists that are poorly trained, and then this cycle kinds of continues. And also we also have the problem of in Nigeria there are a lot of misconceptions. There's a high level of misconceptions about science, especially with regards to culture and religion. So this is hurting the democratization of science in Nigeria, as well as the formulation of science policies that will bring about the needed development in the different sectors of the economy in Nigeria, which has, for example, in terms of agriculture, health, and so many other sectors. So realizing all these problems and we were able to organize the first science festival in northern Nigeria. This festival was actually organized in 2017 in Gombe State, northeastern part of Nigeria, and it was organized in partnership with Trend, that's like I said, teaching and research in natural sciences for development in Africa. Now, Science Communication Hub Nigeria started in 2018. We started Science Communication Nigeria in January 2018. And it's an online platform, a community of scientists, journalists, communicators, and researchers. We came together for the love of science in order to promote the public understanding of science in Nigeria. Our missions are to enhance the visibility of Nigerian and African scientists, and also to generate a database of the stories about Nigerian scientists, and as well as to promote the public understanding of science and to facilitate collaborations between scientists, and also to increase the participation of scientists in public engagement. So far, this is our website. We are trying to engage the public online through our online platform, and we have some pages, as you can see on the website. We have articles, we write inspiring stories, we have a page for Meet a Scientist, science news, early career research stories, Ask a Scientist, and in all of these pages, for example, when you look at the articles, we write articles about science-related issues in society. In the society, scientists write about issues that are current contemporary issues in Nigerian society. And here we write inspiring stories. These stories depict successes and as well as the passion of scientists in the pursuit of their career. And on this page, on the Meet a Scientist page, usually where we have the database of scientists, whereby the public students as well can try to find mentors in the website. So far, when you look at the inspiring stories page, we have written 17 stories. And like I said here, we write stories about scientists, depicting their challenges, their successes. And this is not just to kind of enhance the visibility of scientists, as well as to celebrate their discoveries, yes, because scientists have the disposition to kind of confine their research in the laboratory, and most times Nigerian scientists do fantastic research, but it remains in the laboratory shelves. So we try to, through these stories, we celebrate the discoveries of Nigerian scientists, and also we make their discoveries eventful. And in the early career researchers page, the stories, we have written 11 stories. We have written and published 11 stories so far. And on the articles page, we have written 23 articles. And when you look at the scientists, so far we have 47 scientists on our database. Yes, from different universities and research institutions across Nigeria. And then we have our biweekly news updates, science news about Africa, yes. And this is the events, the events page where we post news about events, about some of the outreach that we're doing in Nigeria. For example, we recently had an outreach on drug abuse and drug addiction, which happens to be a serious issue in Nigeria. A lot of young people are abusing drugs, and we invited some scientists, some researchers, and we had discussions with them with regards to drug addiction and some of the consequences that it can have on people. And we went further to organize an essay competition for secondary school students for them to write about the menace of drug abuse in Nigeria and how ways in which it can be curbed. Now, we have some interesting statistics here because Now, when you look at the page, when you look at our website, we discovered that on this stats here, you can see that the article, uh, most of the people that engage, that visit our website, the article page they visit is the most visited page here. About yes, about 26% the people that visit actually look up to the articles page, and then followed by the Meet a Scientist page, and then the Inspiring Stories page. And here we have the countries that visit our website. Here. Nigeria is the hotspot. Nigeria is the hotspot. Science communication Nigeria is based, of course, in Nigeria. So Nigeria is the hotspot. Then we have other countries in Africa, for example, down here in the blue, the deep blue countries. You can see usually they visit our pages. South Africa and somewhere around the United States. And we also do carry out social media engagement. We have our Facebook page, we have Twitter, we have Instagram, and here we have thousands of followers across Nigeria and the world over. Yes. So usually when we post our stories online on social media, when we post our stories, we found that when we post them organically, our post usually it reaches around 3,000 people. But then when we pay for some of these posts, we pay for them, we're able to reach around um, 7,000 people. Yes, when we make those posts on social media. And here's also another interesting statistic here. When you look at the post engagement, we found that young people, females, yes, young females between the age of 13 and 17, engage more. They are keen. They engage more with our posts on social media, and even on our website, we found out that here you can see that around 28% of the people that engage with our website are females between 13 and 17 years. And here we have between the age of 25 and 34, we have men, yes, engaging. But this tells us that young people are more interested in terms of, they are more keen to engaging with science. And you can see how it goes down as the age increases, it goes down. The level of engagement or participation on the website as well as on social media, it also goes down. And yes, this also tells us that because the young people are usually they are technology savvy, so they engage more because they have access to the internet. About over 100 million people in Nigeria have access to the internet, and a large percentage of this it's the youth that actually engage. Yes. So and now moving forward, recently we got a grant from the Welcome Trust, and we are hoping to organize a workshop on science communication and science journalism, which is coming up in September, hopefully, and we are going to train scientists and journalists on how best to communicate science research, especially in health research. And at the end of the day, what we are hoping to do is we are going to produce stories because we are going to pair scientists and journalists together. One scientist, one journalist, we are going to pair them together. And at the end of the day, after the training, within a period of 12 months, it is expected that they are going to produce stories about the research. The journalists are going to produce stories about the research that the scientist is carrying out. So, and then yes, we've organized, like I said earlier, we've organized some science essays and competitions in some secondary schools across Nigeria. So we are looking forward to, we want to expand this project. For example, we want to expand this project, we want to do more, we want to organize. We were able to organize the competition across some few states in Nigeria. There are about 6 states in Nigeria. And at the moment, we've organized in Abuja, in Lagos. So we're looking forward to expanding the project. Thank you. That's the presentation.
Great. Thank you so much for that. What I'm hoping to do now is this is the fun part, Abdullahi, where we will get to a little bit of the meat of what you discussed and get some clarification on some specific slides that you did. Sounds like you're doing some fantastic work. And so what I'd like to start with really is just talk a little bit about you. So why did you get involved with this organization, and what's your motivation and so forth? Just you as a biologist.
Yes, yes. Um, Actually, I was motivated to join Science Communication of Nigeria while I was still an undergraduate student. Um, there are a lot of misconceptions around science in Nigeria. And I discovered that a lot of journalists, for example, do not have a science background. So sometimes when they
Okay. So yeah, Abdullah, you were saying about how you got involved with the organization. Would you like to continue that? Just a little bit more about your interest and how you got involved?
okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
So like I was saying, I, I, I'm passionate about promoting science and technology in Nigeria. And like I said, a lot of journalists do not have a background in science. So as a result, there is the reporting, science reporting is ineffective in Nigeria. So, and I wanted to change this. And that is why I got myself involved into science communication. Also, as a science journalist, I volunteered to join the communication team of Science Communication Hub Nigeria in order to promote the public understanding of science in Nigeria.
Okay. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about that. So if you go to your mission slide that you have, what I usually like to do is ask organizations to really think a little bit more about what are the one is the mission itself, and then what are the measurable outcomes that you guys great. What are the measurable outcomes, the indicators of success that you guys are using to let you know that you are making progress moving forward, right? So if we just take these missions one by one, for example, the first one, and your focus is to enhance the visibility of Nigerian and African scientists and generate an accessible database of their stories. So you share some really nice data showing how many you have, 11 stories, 23 articles, 47 scientists. Those are, I guess, those are sort of outcomes, right? They like pieces of information that you have now. What I'm curious about is how are these stories, right, that you've generated, how are they being used, right? Because ultimately, what is your hope that these stories how will they be used basically? Like what other metrics are you using to assess impact? Beyond the website, like just the website visits, is there something else that you're tracking? Hey, Abdullah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I'm trying to think if the video is the problem or not, but let's just see if it holds. So basically my question again, I just wanted to know if you can talk a little bit more about the matrix, the indicators that you're using to measure this first outcome here, the first mission, sorry, the enhancing the visibility of Nigerian African
Nigerians.
scientists. Yeah.
Science.
What is your hope that these stories, what are measurable things that you hope you'll be able to ascertain down the line beyond the websites, visits, and so forth?
Yes, yeah. We are trying to, so far, what we have been to evaluate is based on what is happening in the website. So it's a continuous process. We started January 2018, and we are still hoping to see how we can do more evaluations with regards to the impact of the stories that we're writing, and to see if we are on track towards achieving our aim. But so far, as you can see on the slides, we had already generated a database of stories about scientists in Nigeria and also across Africa. And so far, we have a good number. We have 47 scientists in the database. And we also have this WhatsApp group, the WhatsApp group, where we have over 100 scientists. And so far, there have been collaborations between scientists in order to carry out some research in Nigeria. So I, I believe that we are still in the process, but I think we are on track.
Yeah, so I think that's the key thing. The key thing there you have to figure out is what are measurable, you know, like measurable outcomes. You can say, okay, if this happens, we are on track. Is it that you get 100,000 people visiting your website, right? That's one measure. Or is it that the stories are now being used in the classroom, for example, right? By training with students, right? So then you can track, for example, how many teachers are using your stories and how are they using them, right? So these are things that you certainly go beyond the website, right? Where you have to collaborate with people, entities like schools, and figuring out how they can use them. So anyway, I don't know if you guys are thinking about that in that way.
Yes, yes, definitely, yes.
Okay, okay. So let's just go back to the mission again. So I want to go back to point number two, um, where you now said that you promote the public understanding of science and dispel misconceptions about it. How are you doing this? How are you measuring this?
Yes, this actually happening on the article page. When you look at our article
Mm-hmm.
page,
Mm-hmm.
this is where we write scientists write stories about contemporary issues, science issues in Nigeria, and this is where we are trying to kind of promote the public understanding of science with regards to those issues. And then we also have a session, we usually call it Ask a Scientist. It's actually a radio program, a local radio program, whereby we invite scientists to come and talk about their research, and then also answer questions from the public. So the way so far the way we are measuring it is from the website but we we definitely have to look at how we can
Yeah, because
measure it
because what,
practically.
yeah, because what you're measuring are outcomes, like the numbers, like how many of them you publish and how many hosts, for example. The next level would be to say what is the actual impact, right? And if you're trying to assess what the stories you're publishing online and whether people are actually, is there a measurable change, right, in their understanding? If you go back to your mission statement, right, is there a measurable change in their understanding of science and dispelling of misconceptions about it? I don't know if you can answer that right now. I think you're on your way to doing that, right?
Yes.
But ultimately, you just look at your own goals and say, okay, are we able to analyze, right, based on the numbers we have? Can we look at this specific thing? And I think you can absolutely do it by beginning to probe yourselves, right? And the people that are reading the website, right? Are they
Yes,
from
yes.
a T0? What is their current understanding? And then a T1 or T2, what is their change, right? And you can do this across different populations and so forth. It's survey based, but even on the website, I think you can begin to see that, because ultimately, if your goal is to promote the public understanding of science, great. But then, how do you know if that's what you're doing, right? Um, and if we go to the third one, increasing the collaboration between scientists and research, how are you? I don't know from any of your projects whether you're doing this, but are you able? How do you measure this?
Well, at the moment, we don't really have any baseline to
Okay.
measure this at the moment, yes.
Okay.
But we just try to encourage scientists to engage with the public about their research by writing stories about their research and and, and their career as scientists. So
Mm-hmm.
we're hoping that this will kind of encourage the younger generations, students in secondary schools, to inspire them, and even younger scientists, for example, early career scientists, to do more in terms of
Public outreach, right? So then there are two questions here, right? The two parts of this, because you said increased collaboration between scientists. That's one thing, right? If you want to see how many scientists are collaborating to doing research, right? Is that correct? Right.
yes,
So
yes.
that's one measure. You can say, okay, scientist A, scientist B, at T0, what is the current state? You kind of need to know that, right? Is it low? Is it medium? Right? And what would it even mean, right? So you can look at an easy one would be look at publication data, right, from Nigerian scientists, and PubMed, well, the US version, but I don't know what Nigeria has, but you can look how many people are collaborating, right? Co-authoring papers, different scientists from different universities, for example. That's one way. And then you can say, well, this is the current state. It's very low, let's say. Now, we're going to come in with our intervention, whatever that is, database or workshops, and then we're going to test it a year or 2 years later to see whether there's been an increase. And you can localize it too, maybe to in Abuja or very specific locations, right, within Nigeria, to lower the yield, because Nigeria is massive, obviously, but making it local and seeing whether that is. So that's one part there. The second part is participation in public engagement. I think this is a great goal, right? If if you can, are you able to tell me what is the current level of public engagement from scientists? Is it low? So in Nigeria, do they participate in public engagement? Is this something that's encouraged?
Well, I think it is low at the moment, even though, for example, I think public confidence in science is kind of increasing. But scientists generally are not participating in public engagements, especially when we talk about policies that are science policies. And these policies, of course, scientists have to be at the forefront in terms of the formulation of these policies. For example, in Nigeria, we're already talking about GMOs, I mean, genetically modified organisms. And
Mm-hmm.
well, yeah, well, there are organizations, for example, that are out there trying to enhance the public understanding of what genetically modified organisms are. But for example, when you look at public, I mean, a lot of people are not aware. When you go into the streets, in the streets, a lot of people don't even know what GMs are. They don't
Mm-hmm.
even know what GMs are.
Right. So that's the public, though, right?
Really,
The public are
yeah,
not
that's the problem.
understanding, but are scientists not engaging in public engagement? That's my question. You said it's low, but is there an encouragement? Are universities, are they being encouraged by universities to go and engage the public? Or is it something that's not encouraged?
Or it is not actually encouraged, actually.
Okay. Okay.
Mm, mm.
Okay, because I think that's something that, again, for your mission, right, as you said here, increase participation in public engagement. Then you can say how many. You even do a survey of scientists, right, in
Yeah.
Nigeria, and say how many in the last year, how many of you have participated in engaging with the public in the following way, right? Whether you go and give talks at local schools or so forth, right? And then you have a data point to say, yeah, we have 300 scientists that responded, only 5% actually in the past year have engaged in any public outreach, right? And there's been a similar study, for example, in the UK that they did this, and the number is really low, right? And so then the goal would be, okay, in the next year or next 2 years, with our activities, right? Whether it's we go to universities and talk to administration, talk to faculty, right? can we get that number to go higher, right? So that we go back and say, look, now the delta is much bigger, that we have now increased the number of those people, scientists that are out there doing things. And I think that's, you know, through your science festival, for example, right, you're creating opportunities for them to engage, right?
Yes.
So then
Yes.
you can track how many scientists are participating in that activity, for example, from year 1 to year 2. These are things that you can then say, like, here are some measurable outcomes that we are looking at, right? But I think you have all the elements, right, that right there, which are fantastic, by the way, and especially, you know, in Nigeria. And this is why I kind of want to talk to as many founders from around the world, because we're all doing similar things, and I think we can learn a lot from each other. So I think, which I think is fantastic. So yeah, so then let's just go a little bit also to your stories themselves. So the scientists are writing these themselves, right? Your stories.
Yes, scientists write, and we also write. For example, I've been in charge of writing some of the stories, editing, and
Yeah.
then publishing some of the stories. Sometimes we ask scientists, we send them some questions, and then we ask them to reply. They send us their responses, and then we
I see.
edit, and then we publish the stories. While sometimes I do engage scientists to talk about their research and then interview them and publish the story. For example, this story here, this very story here, I
Mm-hmm.
interviewed is a
Yeah.
postdoctoral researcher and microbiologist and
Uh-huh.
at the State University here in Nigeria, from State University here in Nigeria. And, and this same story here, for example, when you look at the story of Professor Francisca, she's based in the US, but then we sent some questions and she responded, and then we edited and published the story here.
Right. Exactly. So I think that this is great because we, as you probably know, we run the Journal of Stories in Science, and we, similar to you, publish stories not even just scientists. We actually are much broader and take narratives from different people, because our premise is that everyone has a narrative in science. The question is, what is it, right? We're trying to break down those barriers to say, like, it's the scientist talking to the public, it's the scientist talking to the public, it's the public talking to the scientist, right? It's a dual role that takes place. And so I think this is a great endeavor. Just briefly looking at your site, you know, as a user, I'm thinking, how can I quickly find different types of stories? Because different types, you know, they're not the same, they're all different. So I don't know if there's a search feature that you have on the site
No,
that is there.
we don't have that on the site. Unfortunately, we don't have that. But then,
Yeah. Which is fine again, right? And there are a lot of initiatives that are now doing this kind of work, and the field is so massive that I think there's room for everyone to participate, right?
yes.
So I want to open up a suggestion to you that if there are stories that you think we can publish in our journal, because we have sort of figured out how to do the search feature, and our database is really global in nature, in the sense that we're looking for stories from around the world. What we would happily, I'm going to send you the link as well. We would be happy to collaborate and help you increase the visibility of your stories, because ultimately that's one of our goals, is that we don't want to be reinventing the wheel, but get narratives like yours and increase that figure you showed me, the viewership of your stories, right? To get that to whatever number that you want on that. Oops, guys, looks like we lost contact there. Please hold tight. Hopefully it comes back soon. Hey, you're back. Fantastic. Could you put the slides back up again?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So I was saying that I sent you the link. We're talking about just ways to collaborate in getting your stories out to a broader audience.
Yes.
there as well. So we would welcome, and I'll contact you separately as well to just point out a couple of stories that we think will be fantastic to include in our database as well. Okay, and of course, I'll be linking back to your original website so that you have a cross linking that is there.
Yes.
The other set of questions, so I want to say congratulations for getting the grant from the Wellcome Trust. Can you talk a little bit more about what that is and what are you guys doing there?
Okay. Abdullahi Trust Grant, actually, it's
Hey, Abdullahi, so I have a suggestion. Let's not do the slides, okay? Maybe I think it's it's overkill when we try to do the slides and video as well. So just talk briefly about the grant that you guys have. What is that about?
yes. Like I said, the grant, we were able to get a grant through the trend, teaching and research in natural sciences for
Oh, okay.
development in Africa. Yeah. So in collaboration with Trend, we are going to organize a science, communication, and journalism workshop in Nigeria. It's holding in Abuja in September, hopefully. So what we hope to do is to train both scientists and journalists in terms of communicating science research, especially in the area of health sciences. So, and we are hoping to, at the end of the day, we hope to develop a data of science journalists as well as that of scientists. And like I said earlier, we hope we want to pair scientists and a journalist, we pair them together, and then we'll see how they could produce, how the journalists can produce stories with regards to the research that the scientist is currently undertaking in his university for a period of 12 months. Yeah, and this will last for a period of 12 months. And we expect that they're going to produce stories at the end of the day. Yes.
Okay, I see. So I think that's a great workshop model. Ultimately, again, as you know, in measuring impact, you kind of want to look at what it is, the current state again, right? So you hopefully will do like a pre-assessment of some sort of the people that attend the workshop, figure out where they are, and then do your intervention, and then see what the change is afterwards, right? And then you can track them onwards and so forth, and also what they do later. Just collect as much data as you can, basically, because that data is really important to then look at, okay, is what we're doing working in the way we think we want it to work, right? So just keep those metrics in mind, record as much as you can in terms of data, because you never know what you're going to need. And it's great to hear that you're collaborating with Trends. We actually wrote an article about Trends a couple of years ago, actually, a couple of years ago, maybe in 2013, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And where they were just starting out. And so we had recorded, we had written up a little bit about them, published it in Nature, because we were so impressed with what they were doing. So I'm glad to hear that you guys are connecting with them and collaborating as such. And I think this is where, like, as you're building these, like, workshops is it's a thing that you're doing. It's a program almost, right? Because if the goal is to increase the number of, you said, science communicators, right, in the country.
Yes.
Yeah, that's something that if you can measure right now, like in Nigeria, how many science communicators are there? Do you know this?
No.
No, right? It would be good to know, right?
Yeah.
But I'm willing to bet it's very low, right?
Yes, it's very low. It's very
Right,
low.
right. So then you have to sort of get that number, figure out how do you get that number? I don't know. Are there training programs, for example, in science communication? The US we do. Are there training programs in science communication in Nigeria? Do you know this? Okay, I would look into that too to figure out whether are there training programs, and if they're not, I think that'd be a laudable goal to say, could we work with some departments, right, universities that can create these training programs?
Yeah, actually, there's a university in Nigeria that started some science communication courses. That is, yes, I think
Yeah.
National State University in Nigeria. So they have this partnership with SciDev. They have this collaboration with SciDev, and starting the curriculum on science communication.
Right, right. And that's why you can track these things, right? How many of them are popping up where, right? And so well, that way you guys can be, uh, you can track everything, figuring out what's going on, and be at the forefront, right? Whether organizations or other organizations or government agencies that are wanting to get the state, they can come to you for information. And by the way, can you tell me, do you know who else is sort of doing what you're doing in Nigeria? Other organizations that are doing what you're doing or similar to what you're doing, or are you guys kind of alone?
Well, at the moment we're alone. There's no any platform. I think there's no any platform similar to that is doing something similar to what we are doing so far.
Okay, because there's one Twitter site that I found. It's called STEM Squad Nigeria. I think STEM Squad period, and they're saying that Nigeria's #1 science STEM student hub. And so they are, and again, just make sure that you try to connect with different entities that may be doing that may be doing these kind of work as well, right? You don't necessarily want to just go at it alone, but check them out. I think the Twitter account is dead. It has not been posted since like a while. But definitely, I think that you may find some people that are definitely interested in this space. I would also encourage you to look at, let's see, STEM Nigeria, STEM organizations in Africa. So we did a database. We have a database right now live that basically tracks all the different organizations in different countries that are in STEM. And in Nigeria, there's a huge number of entities that are in this space. Now, with science communication, that's a different thing. But I think these are all potential partners you guys can partner with. From the WOW Foundation, which I'm sure you know about, hopefully. Do you know about them? The WOW Foundation?
WOW?
The WAAW Foundation. It's a working to advance STEM education for African women. There is, of course, the Viziola Foundation, the STEM Innovation Camps as well, STEM Ed Enterprises, Science Ambassadors Foundation, the Doc Institute that are involved in like science outreach and so forth. These are organizations, these are entities you can partner with, basically. That's what I'm trying to say. And this database is publicly available, by the way. So if you were to Google, just Google list of organizations engaged in STEM education across Africa, you will see the big list that. In fact, you should add yourselves to this list. It's open access; everyone can add themselves. And so just explore that and make sure you add yourselves on there as well. But yeah, so I am, I'm sort of, it's been great talking with you, learning more about your organization. Again, congrats on the grant. My words of advice, again, track everything, right? Track everything and collaborate as much as possible. I'll contact you separately to connect with you on the stories part, because I think that's fantastic. And thinking about how we can measure, what other outcomes can you measure from stories? Because that's a really hard question, actually. It's something that we struggle with as well. That's why I was asking you what you guys are doing, because I'm curious. We haven't figured it out either, actually. So, but we are trying on our website, and you can see the different things that we are trying to do as well there.
I think the challenge is here. One of the key challenges is the fact that we are all volunteers in science communication of Nigeria. Yeah. And at the moment, we are not much, we are very few. Mahmoud is a researcher in UK. I'm in Nigeria. I'm a journalist. I don't have the time to some of the work. So I need funding to carry out some of this project, especially if we want to really try to see how we can track the impact of these stories and follow up.
Right, right. And then again, you don't have to do it alone, right? This is the thing where I think if you collaborate with people, and we are all about collaboration, and we have connected with so many different people,
Yes,
we can definitely help you in that aspect and getting a couple of these of your stories into our database so that they can get wider distribution,
yes,
right? Because I think it's not just these stories are not just for Nigerians. I think they're for really for everyone, right? And I think that's the core piece of what you're trying to do, and we are aligned on that front
yes,
for sure. And what to your point that you guys are all volunteers, you have a full-time job doing something else, right?
yes,
Right. So that's a challenge, and I completely agree. It's a. Are you a nonprofit in Nigeria?
yes.
Okay.
And
So okay, so that's where it's challenging. How do you make funding things
we,
work? You know.
uh, we are trying to get registered as a non-profit here. The process is a bit here in Nigeria. The process is a bit hard, a bit difficult. But we are in
Yeah.
the process of doing that. Once we are able to get registered and expand.
Okay, I understand. I understand. Okay, so, but again, let's continue this discussion on email, and I'm looking forward to collaborate with you guys somehow and helping you move forward. Our team is international, and again, we are also all volunteers, so it's just a thing that we're excited to do and connect, and we're happy to connect you. And this is the trick: is to connect you with other people that are in the space. And the first task is for you guys to look at our database that we already created online, and it's been there for about 5 years for you to see who you can connect with, because now the database is building itself. We don't touch it actually, which is a cool thing. But again, Abdullahi, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat. I will be posting this video, and I'll connect the different pieces because we broke up a couple of times. But again, thanks, and looking forward to connecting with you and collaborating. Okay.
Yeah,
All right,
thank
nice.
you so much.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
problem. All right. Talk soon. Bye.
Bye.